for better or for worse. There's a 6-year-old boy. He came home from school one day with a note from his teacher. And the note said, "Dear, this lad should not even return to school because he was too stupid to learn anything." This young lad's name was Thomas Edison, the greatest mind of the 20th century. Did his parent listen? Did Thomas listen? No. Walt Disney was fired by his newspaper editor because he lacked imagination and could not come up with any good ideas. Walt Disney was fired for no imagination. He had a choice. Did he give those invisible words and vibrations power in his life? No. At his first audition, Sidney Poitier was told by the casting director, "Why don't you stop wasting people's times and go out and get a job as a dishwasher?" Sidney Poitier realized at that moment, "I will devote my life to acting." All right? So instead of listening and allowing someone else's lesser idea, power in these 3 lives, Thomas Edison, Walt Disney, Sidney Poitier, they served as springboards to inspire the greatness history records for each one of these children of God. This is not new thought. James wrote in the 3rd chapter of his epistle, "Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water." In other words, the person speaks with an intention, but it's received with a perception. So the person who told Sidney to go and wash dishes was speaking with an intention. The person who fired Walt Disney for no imagination was speaking with an attitude, an opinion. But it was received with a perception, and that perception served not as destruction, but as inspiration. The lesson today, the theme today, is invited and meant for all of us to realize the power of past messages still rests in our hand. That how and what people say to us still gets determined by our perception today in the present. Excuse me. A basic application of this act of looking back and recalling these messengers who somehow, for good, for bad, for worse, or for greatness, shaped our belief in ourselves today, is to recognize they still are influencing us. Because once we recognize or realize, my God, this is ridiculous. Well, I still, to this day, when I attempt to sing, hear the 1st grade nun shout to me in front of 100 children in the Pied Piper play, "Don't ever sing in public." And so if you hear me, chime out a little verse of the peace song once and again, believe me, I am overcoming more insecurity, all right, than you would even imagine. If you hear me one day, just be like, "Nobody knows." You may think he's off key, but let me tell you, just the point that I'm catching the harmony And the tempo, without any music drowning out my voice, is the biggest gift from God. But I still, today, I can see her. She's like 80 feet tall. It was Catholic school. They're supposed to love you. There were 100 kids laughing at me. But the point of the matter is, once I recognize it, it has no power over me. But until the day I recognize it, then I actually believe the message. When we do this, you discover, as I just did, that some of our first who's who in our neighborhood, who's who in our hood, who's who in our mind, might be individuals who taught us that we're less than children of God. What we have to ask ourselves about these messages is are they true? Are they relevant today? Are they holding us back? And if so, who has the power? Come on, does the nun have the power over me today? Or who has the power? Okay? And so when a person from our past says something negative against us, they were probably projecting their own insecurities. Because if I could go back to that moment, I'd be like, sister, let me hear you go sing. All right? Sister, let me hear you go sing. I noticed she didn't have any part, as I remember, in the Pied Piper. I never remember her busting out the Star-Spangled Banner in first grade. She was speaking to herself, more than likely. In 1959, Dr. King wrote a book, The Measures of Man. And he says, man is man because he is free to operate in the framework of his, and I add to her, destiny. He or she is free to deliberate, to make decisions, and to choose between alternatives. And so today I invite everyone to decide to allow God to come through us as love and as power in every dream and idea. I invite us to remember there is always a power greater than ourselves, a higher power available. And you want to know it's your higher power? It only brings positive messages and opinions. God, the higher power, Spirit, the Christ presence will never tear us down. It's just not in its nature. Only we can do that to ourselves, and it's our human side of ourselves that holds on to these opinions and won't break free from the past.